Behind me is the first railway tunnel in Canada. And as you can see, people can walk through it. Join me to explore and find out more. I'm in Brockville, and this is the Brockville Railway Tunnel, built between 1854 and 1860 by the Brockville and Ottawa Railway, which merged with the Canada Central Railway in 1878. That, in turn, was acquired by the Canadian Pacific in 1881. This tunnel was in service for over a century before it was shut down, and now it's a tourist attraction, and it's free. But why was the tunnel even here in the first place? Because Brockville's port is here, obviously at river level. In fact, part of the port was constructed with materials excavated from the tunnel during construction, which is why this area, called Blockhouse Island, is no longer an island. Meanwhile, the rail line to Ottawa is up there, and there's a significant elevation difference between them. Conventional railways don't work on steep slopes. So, a direct route straight down over the landscape wouldn't work. You could just dig a ditch from one end to the other at a constant slope, but there's a big problem with that. That would go right through downtown. Nope. There was also a proposal to bring the rail line in a large loop to the west of town, but ultimately the tunnel idea won out. It has a relatively constant slope of about 1%, which works fine for trains. But how to build the tunnel? Well, as it turns out, they used 3 different methods for the north, central, and southern section of the tunnel. Here at the south end, it's south of the downtown core, so they used the cut and cover method. Dig a hole in the ground, build a tunnel, cover it back up again. The walls in this section are made of brick, and here's an example of what they look like. As you can see, there are doors on the end of the tunnel. These days, those are to keep people out when the tunnel's closed, like overnight and in the winter. But originally, they were there to keep animals out. Now, let's go for a walk through the tunnel, and I'll tell you more, including about how the other 2 parts of the tunnel were built, and you can enjoy the light show that's been installed.
The train track design at the entrance is a nice touch, isn't it? Railway tunnels are notoriously expensive to build, and that's a big part of why it took 6 years to build barely more than half a kilometer of tunnel. After a couple of years of tunnel construction, the railway was in financial difficulty, a very common problem during the railway construction booms of the 19th century, so work stopped for about 2 years. During that time, the railway managed to raise some more money, and Brockville held a referendum in which citizens approved continuing the tunnel, so work resumed. I mentioned that different parts of the tunnel used different construction methods. As you can see here, as we go from the southern section to the central section, the walls here are bare rock. The middle part of the tunnel goes through solid granite, so it was tunneled using explosives. Not dynamite, that hadn't been invented yet. It was plain old gunpowder. There are some ventilation shafts, as you can see in these photos. After all, the tunnel was designed for steam locomotives, so getting the exhaust gases out of the tunnel was pretty important. When City Hall was built directly above the tunnel in 1863, the pair of ventilation shafts in the southern section were incorporated right into the building, leading to chimneys on its roof. As we pass into the northern section, you can see that the walls look a lot like the southern section, as they're both lined with brick, but it was built differently. It was tunneled the old-fashioned way, by men with tools such as pickaxes and shovels. Water flowing down through the ground brings dissolved minerals into the tunnel and leaves deposits on the walls. Here's an example from the northern section. And now we come to the north end of the tunnel. Join me outside and I'll tell you more about this tunnel.
And here we are at the north portal. CP replaced the steam locomotives that they used to use in this tunnel with diesels in 1954. The last diesels ran through this tunnel around 1970, and in the 1970s, CP pulled up the tracks and the ties. They sold this tunnel to Brockville for $1 in 1983, but most of the original Brockville and Ottawa rail line is actually still in use. If you've ever taken the Via Rail train between Toronto and Ottawa, Brockville is the point at which that route diverges from the Toronto to Montreal route, turning north and heading through Smiths Falls. That's the old Brockville and Ottawa rail line. And it's actually one of the few pieces of mainline rail that VIA actually owns. About 97% of the rails that VIA runs over are owned by other railways, primarily CN, but also some others, including Metrolinx in the Toronto area. I talked about Metrolinx and the ownership of rail lines in Toronto in my video about lost railways in Toronto. There's a magic link up here, and I'll put a link down in the description so you can find it when you finish watching this video. And running off to the north, through this trench beside the park path, is the route that the Brockville and Ottawa Railroad took. Just hidden up there, where it crosses the CN main line, there's a bridge where this passed under the CN main line. And there you have it, the Brockville Railway Tunnel. If you want to come and visit, a couple of words of advice. One is bring a light jacket, because even in the hottest of summer days, it's actually pretty cool in there, and be prepared to be dripped on, because groundwater does come through the tunnel at all times. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe.